The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung. You didn't just miss your chance. You didn't just lose momentum. And no, it wasn't bad luck. You sabotaged it. You walked away right when it was working. You got scared when someone finally loved you. You stopped trying when the world started noticing. But here's the truth no one wants to admit. Sometimes when life finally offers you what you said you wanted, you run. Because the pain of failing is familiar, but the fear of holding on to something good, that's terrifying. You've trained your nervous system to only feel safe in chaos. And when peace arrives, you call it boring. You chase distraction. You cause conflict. You disappear. This isn't random. It's a pattern, and it's not new. Look at your life. How many times have you almost made it, and then something got in the way? You think you attract failure? But maybe you're just more comfortable with disappointment than with joy. Why? Because joy means vulnerability. Happiness means responsibility. Success means people will expect something from you. Love means you could lose it. And maybe a part of you believes you don't deserve any of it. So you ruin it. Not because you're broken, but because sabotaging yourself is your way of staying in control. You'd rather be the one who walks away than the one who gets left behind. You'd rather ruin the project than risk it failing without your permission. You'd rather stay small than be exposed. That's not weakness. That's a survival instinct. But it's destroying you. Because every time you run, lie, delay, or accidentally forget, you're not escaping fear. You're reinforcing it. You're telling your mind, I can't handle good things. I don't belong in this life. And guess what? Your mind listens. But what if that wasn't true? What if the only thing between you and the life you say you want is the decision to stop running when it gets real? Self-sabotage doesn't come crashing through the door. It doesn't scream or explode or burn everything down in a single night. It whispers, it delays, it distracts, and it looks like nothing at all. It starts small, tiny choices that don't feel important. You hit snooze once, you skip the call, you delay the message, you avoid the gym. You wait one more day, just one, but then that one turns into 2, and then 5, and then it becomes a habit. Not a conscious one, no, a defensive one. A quiet, hidden strategy that tells the world, I'm not ready, I'm not safe, don't expect anything from me. And here's the brutal truth. You're not being attacked by some external enemy. You are the architect of your own stagnation. You've built a life that protects you from your potential, not because you're lazy, but because discipline would force you to face the gap between who you are and who you could be. That's terrifying. Discipline is a mirror. And most people hate what they see. Because once you commit, once you give something everything, there's no excuse left. You can't blame the system. You can't blame your past. You can't hide behind potential. You either do it or you don't. And that's the secret your mind is trying to protect you from. Failure only hurts when you actually tried. So instead of giving yourself that chance, you create chains. Not physical ones, but invisible ones, wrapped around your habits, your fears, your comfort. And every time you avoid discomfort, you tighten those chains. They don't scream. They don't rattle. They just hold you exactly where you are, stuck between a version of yourself you hate and one you're too scared to become. But here's the thing, that trap, it's not locked. There's no key because you never needed one. All it takes is a choice to face the tension, to move without certainty, to act without asking for motivation first. Because waiting to feel ready is the first lie your sabotage tells you. You don't need to be ready. You need to stop building your own walls. If this content makes sense to you, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Thank you. Failure hurts. But here's what no one tells you. Failure also protects you. when you keep falling short, when you almost succeed, but never fully do, it gives you a strange comfort. It gives you something to talk about, something to chase, something to blame. Most of all, it gives you an identity. You become the one who was meant for more, the talented one who just hasn't had the chance yet, the person with potential. And potential is seductive, because potential keeps you safe from pressure. No expectations, no responsibility, no real risk. Just enough praise to feel valuable, but not enough movement to be tested. And that's the reward. That's the trap. Because the moment you succeed, the illusion dies. You're no longer someone who could be great. You are either great or not. You're now in the open, fully seen, with no excuses left. And for many people, that is far more terrifying than failure. So unconsciously, they choose to stay stuck. They miss deadlines. They stay in toxic relationships. They scroll instead of act. Because they don't want to find out who they are without the fallback story. Letting go of the identity of almost means you'll have to face what comes next. Silence. Expectations. Responsibility. And that's where self-sabotage kicks in. It's not about laziness, it's about fear. The fear of being seen. The fear of being enough and realizing even that doesn't fix you. Because what if you do succeed and you're still miserable? What if you get the thing and it doesn't save you? That's the hidden terror. That achievement won't rescue you from your own mind. So you fail, again and again. Not because you want to, but because failure has become your proof that you're still waiting, still building, still not ready. It allows you to pretend there's more time, but deep down, you know there isn't. Every failed attempt, every delay, is secretly giving you something. Control, familiarity, the safety of not having to confront the unknown. So if you're stuck, ask yourself, what are you getting out of not moving forward? Because nobody clings to sabotage unless it's offering a reward, even if that reward is just the comfort of never being tested. Most people think they're chasing freedom. They talk about wanting a better life, more discipline, more success, more peace. But when you really look at how they live, what they tolerate, and what they sabotage, you start to see the truth. They don't want freedom. They want familiarity. Because real freedom is terrifying. Freedom means you can no longer blame your boss, your parents, your childhood, or society. It means standing face to face with your own reflection. No filters, no justifications. It means owning your choices, owning your time, owning your mind. And that kind of responsibility feels unbearable when you've spent years being caged. Here's the cruel irony. The cage you complain about is the one you keep choosing. Not because it's good, but because it's known, because it's yours, because stepping outside of it would mean letting go of the stories that have kept you safe. And that's what most people don't realize. They don't fear change. They fear losing the identity they've built around their suffering. The victim, the martyr, the underdog, the misunderstood genius. These are all roles that come with a quiet reward. You get to opt out of being fully responsible for your life. That's the comfort of the cage. It limits you, but it also protects you. It keeps you from failure, but also from success. It stops pain, but also blocks love. It numbs the anxiety, but dulls the joy. And if you've lived inside it long enough, you begin to confuse safety with fulfillment. You start believing that peace means avoiding risk, that love means being tolerated, not challenged, that self-worth is something you earn through suffering, not something you already have. But the truth is brutal. You are not meant to stay in the cage. The cage was built during your weakest moment, and now you keep it intact as if it were sacred. You defend it. You justify it. You decorate it with achievements, routines, and superficial comfort. But deep down, you feel the unrest. You feel the tension every time you go to bed unfulfilled. Every time you silence your real thoughts just to keep things peaceful. Every time you shrink yourself to fit inside someone else's expectations, that's the body telling you, this life doesn't fit anymore. Yet instead of stepping into something larger, you reinforce the bars. I'm not ready. I'm not good enough yet. I'll change when I have more time. Excuses disguised as humility, but behind them is fear. Fear of who you'd become if you stopped playing small. Fear of what you'd lose if you actually followed your truth. Fear of the void. The unknown space between the cage and the person you're meant to be. Because here's the thing about the void. It's real. When you walk away from the cage, there's a stretch of silence, a period where you've let go of the old, but haven't yet found the new, where you're nobody, where no one claps, where nothing is certain. Most people turn back at that point, not because the cage was good, but because the silence felt unbearable. But if you want a different life, you have to go through that silence. You have to walk through the desert between who you were and who you're becoming. You'll question yourself. You'll grieve the roles you once played. You'll feel alone. But if you keep going, you'll start to feel something else, power. Because once the noise fades, you'll finally hear your own voice. Not the programmed guilt, not the expectations. You and that voice. It doesn't beg. It doesn't sabotage. It doesn't settle. It rises. Quiet at first, then stronger. And eventually, it becomes a force. But only if you dare to leave the cage behind. Only if you stop confusing comfort with peace. Only if you realize the cost of staying small is your entire life. So ask yourself, are you living in a cage that you've mistaken for home? Because until you face that, you'll keep sabotaging every opportunity for freedom. Not because you're broken, but because you've built your identity around the bars. You don't just lose motivation when you sabotage yourself. You lose trust, and that's a far more dangerous thing to lose. Because trust is what makes discipline sustainable. It's what allows you to believe that your effort won't be wasted, that showing up matters, that your goals are worth chasing, even if they take time. But when you've broken that trust repeatedly, by quitting, avoiding, numbing, or running, you stop believing yourself. And it shows in subtle ways. You make promises. I'll start tomorrow. I'll wake up early. I'll eat better. I'll say no next time. And then you break them, not always out of malice, but because part of you doesn't even expect you to follow through. You say things without weight. You commit without conviction. You become a person whose word means nothing, especially to yourself. This is where most self-help advice fails. It tells you to just set goals, stay positive, grind harder. But none of that works if your inner voice rolls its eyes every time you speak. Discipline is not about force. It's about integrity. It's about becoming someone you can trust again. And to rebuild that trust, you don't need grand gestures. You need consistency. You start small, painfully small. You say, I'll go for a walk tomorrow at 8 a.m., and you do it, even if you hate it, even if it's raining, even if it's just for 5 minutes. You do it. And then you do it again and again. Not because walking will change your life, but because keeping your word will. This is the hard part. It's boring. It's slow. No one celebrates it. No one claps when you sit with your discomfort instead of avoiding it. But this is how the healing begins. You don't need more motivation. You need proof. Proof that you're not full of empty promises. Proof that your effort matters. Proof that you can be counted on by yourself. Over time, those small wins add up. They begin to overwrite the old belief that you're unreliable. They teach your nervous system something revolutionary, that showing up doesn't always hurt, that following through doesn't always lead to disappointment. And slowly, you begin to crave that feeling. Not the dopamine rush of distractions, but the quiet pride of self-respect. This is what most people never give themselves long enough to feel. They expect instant change. They want dramatic results, but the real transformation happens quietly, beneath the surface. In the moment you say, "I'll do this," and then you actually do, that's where confidence is born. Not from affirmations, but from evidence. And yes, you'll mess up. You'll break a promise again. You'll miss a day. You'll slip. But this time, you won't use it as proof that you're a failure. You'll use it as feedback. You'll adjust. You'll forgive. And then you'll get back up. That's how trust is built, not through perfection, but through repair. And eventually, the question that once haunted you, "Why do I keep sabotaging myself?" will be replaced with a new one. What would my life look like if I actually believed in myself? Because that's what all of this is leading to. Not just better habits, not just more productivity, but self-respect, self-reliance, inner safety, the kind of safety that doesn't come from routines or success, but from knowing that you have your own back, no matter what. When you reach that point, everything changes. You stop over-explaining. You stop chasing people who don't value you. You stop panicking when life gets hard. Because now you know you can trust yourself to show up, even in the storm. That's when discipline becomes freedom, not a chore, not a punishment, but a path, one that leads you out of sabotage and into strength. You don't avoid hard things because you're lazy. You avoid them because somewhere deep down, they don't feel like you. That's the real conflict. Not between effort and rest, not between productivity and pleasure, but between the version of you that wants to grow and the version of you that doesn't believe you belong on the other side of that growth. You sabotage because success feels foreign. It threatens the identity you've clung to for so long. And that identity, no matter how miserable, has become safe. When you've spent most of your life feeling behind, feeling average, broken, overlooked, any attempt to rise above that comes with tension. Not because you don't want better, but because better doesn't fit who you believe you are. It's like wearing someone else's clothes. They may be nicer, they may look better, but they don't feel like yours. And eventually, you'll rip them off, just to feel like yourself again. This is the trap. You associate pain with progress because every step forward threatens to unearth the parts of you that still believe you're not enough. That's why you delay. That's why you wait until the last second. That's why you accidentally forget things or let opportunities slide. Because deep down, your mind whispers, "This isn't who we are." You may say you want success, but the child in you who got shamed for trying too hard, or the teen in you who was mocked for dreaming big, or the adult in you who was abandoned when you finally opened up, still remembers. They remember how painful it felt to want something more, and how it didn't end well. So now, every time you try again, they panic, they freeze, they sabotage, not to hurt you, but to protect the version of you they've sworn to keep safe. That's the hidden layer. Avoidance isn't always about fear of failure. Sometimes it's fear of becoming someone new, because becoming someone new means killing off parts of the old you, the loyal you, the quiet you, the small you. And that feels like betrayal, especially if your old identity was built around struggle, humility, or invisibility. If you've been the helper, the one who stays behind, who doesn't ask for much, who puts others first and yourself last, then ambition feels selfish. Boundaries feel cruel. Saying no feels violent. And doing the thing that would free you feels wrong. This is how the inner war begins. One part of you wants to thrive. Another part wants to stay hidden. And between them is you, stuck, tired, confused, and constantly self-sabotaging. So how do you end that war? You stop choosing sides. You stop trying to kill the part of you that's afraid. You stop shaming the version of you that's small, cautious, and reluctant. Instead, you listen, because that voice, the one that says, "Don't try, don't risk it, don't bother," isn't your enemy. It's your oldest protector. It's the version of you that kept you alive when life wasn't safe, when you were punished for standing out, when love felt conditional, when failure meant shame and success meant isolation. That voice doesn't want to ruin your life. It just doesn't know that things have changed. It's still living in the past, still believing you're that helpless, voiceless child. And until you show it otherwise, you'll keep avoiding what you say you want. This is why traditional motivation doesn't work, because it yells at you to just do it, while your nervous system is screaming, "If we do this, we'll die." The solution isn't more pressure, it's safety. You have to teach your mind and body that growth is no longer a threat, that discipline won't lead to abandonment, that finishing things doesn't mean you'll be alone. You do this slowly, with compassion, with repetition. You say, "I know you're scared, but we're not that powerless anymore. We can try, and it won't kill us. We can want more and still be safe. We can change and still belong." And then you prove it, with tiny acts of bravery, with choices that stretch you, but don't break you, with boundaries that protect both your ambition and your heart. That's how you rewire the pattern. It's about building a self that doesn't need them anymore. A self that doesn't crave the highs of chaos just to feel alive. A self that can hold on to love, to peace, to progress, without looking for a reason to ruin it. That self is built through action. Small, boring, consistent action. Not grand declarations, not emotional breakdowns that feel like breakthroughs, just choices. Tiny ones,